Welcome back to the Forge, guys. Thank you for joining us for another essential skills lesson. What we're going to be doing today is making a flat staple out of 15 by 5. So the flat staple's not too complicated. We've got a couple of different operations in there. We've got forging a couple of tapers, making sure they're the same length, and bending up as well, and trying to make sure everything's even, parallel, flat, and true. So the first stage with this is to take our bar, mark the center with a center punch. If I've got any chalk in my pocket, which I do, there we go. And then we can start forging. Okay, so after that, 87 mil, about there-ish. Whiz it around, make sure we are actually in the middle, which I'm not. About there. Okay, so center pot mark. I'm going to stick it over to one side slightly. That way I can see the bulge in the edge, and now that's ready to go in the forge. Okay, so to hold my bit of flat bar, I don't have flat bit tongs that will hold this nicely. So what I need to do is, I've got a pair of 12mm hollow bits, or half-inch hollow bits, and they're going to allow me to hold that on edge. They're not going to allow it to rotate, and they're going to give me a good grip. So let's get that warmed up, get those tapers forged. Okay, so I've got my bar nice and hot in the middle. Before I forge my tapers, what do I actually want to do, where's my center punch, there it is just put a little bit of a bend in this. So because it's flat stock and you're trying to bend it on edge, it wants to fold and buckle on you. So every once in a while, you've got to take it back to the anvil and just flatten that bend up. Now, I don't want to bend this more than about 90 degrees. My bend's a little one-sided, so I can spin around in my tongs. And do the other side. There we go. So, my center punch is in the center there, and I'm roughly, 45 degrees either side of that. So that's ready now for me to start forging tapers. What I'll do is bring it over to the edge when my tongs aren't going to interfere with the anvil, which is about there somewhere, and start forging my tapers down. Or I can do it that way up. So rather than working downwards like that, I've changed my mind, I'm going to do it up like this. I can get in there nicely with my hammer, turn it down flat, and forge out these tapers. Now the outside of this staple wants to remain flat and parallel. So that's one reason I decided to do it up in the air like this. And I don't want it to swell up, I want it to stay at 5mm or 6mm if that's what you're using. It wants to stay parallel anyway. There we go, back in the forge. Okay, I've got a slight twist, so let's correct that. Now if you're afraid you're going to hit the anvil, bring it up to the edge. And you can come in nice and sharp on that edge, like so. And I can sharpen that up a little bit more. There we go. Remember to keep your anvil nice and clean. But there's my first little taper forged. I'm parallel, so I'm still 5mm thick, all the way to the end. Now I need to mark my anvil because I'm trying to do two the same. So what I need to do is find my chalk, find somewhere where I'm not going to be hammering. So I'm going to come over to my little table on my anvil, and I'm going to put a chalk mark there. I don't know how long it is, doesn't really matter, it's not in the book. So I'm going to spin this round now, hold the other end, and we'll do the same again. Now the question is, can I still hold it in the same pair of tongs? Because once you put a taper on something, it gets twice as fiddly. So I'm not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to change over to flat bits. There we go. I can hold them with those. That'll work. Okay, so same again. Forge that taper. Keep that stock parallel. We don't want it swelling up. Remember to work your steel nice and warm. Once you get down to sort of those reds you want to give up, chuck it back in the fire to warm up and start all over again. How am I doing for length here? Oh, a little bit more, a little bit more. We'll take one more heat. just to tidy it up. But you can see we're getting somewhere close. We've got reasonably even tape on both sides, but I need one more heat on that. Right, how's that looking? Right, there we go. So we've got our nice even tapers. They're still parallel with the outside of the bar, so they taper from the inside towards the outside, and they're the same length, which is the important bit. Now, the next stage of this is obviously to bend this up and into a full staple, and so I need to warm up the center. I don't want to distort the little tapers that I've just forged, so I'll probably bring them out, quench them off, keep them cool, and then bring it over to the bick of the anvil to do the forming up. Now, we've had a few comments recently asking why we're doing stuff that's so simple. Why is it, why aren't you doing more complicated things, pattern welding, complicated fire welds and stuff? And the answer is, everyone's got to start somewhere. So for those of you who obviously have been doing a bit of forging at home and, you're a bit further along the path, these lessons aren't for you yet. We'll get to the more complicated stuff as time goes on. So we're trying to keep it simple so that beginner smiths and the apprentices and those have got some bits and pieces that they can follow at home, especially during lockdown, and get a bit more tuition. And it also gives me an excuse to show my apprentice how to do some of these operations in the run-up to them going off to Hereford. So you're going to do a bit of back and forth with this, taking it over to the flat of the anvil, over to the bick, putting a little bit of bend in there, and then bringing it back again. Because as I said, this material, because it's flat, wants to buckle on me. Now, you're going to throw it on the floor. That's mandatory. You'll learn to pick stuff up. Now, let's have a quick check to see where my center punch is. So that was that side. So I'm going to spin it around in my tongs now, and I'm going to do exactly the same again until we get these things parallel on the outside. Okay, back onto the bick. Now the other thing I'm doing is bracing the other leg on the inside of my jaw and my tongs. And it's quite easy for me to let go, as you saw a second ago. So let's try and get this bend nice and even. Now once you get so far, and if you get your heat in the right place, you can actually bring it onto the flat of the anvil. And you can close it up on top of the anvil. Make sure it's all nice and flat. And we log in. I can do with a bit more bend over there. It's not looking too terrible. Right then. So, what I need is a little bit more bend on that side. Ooh, that looks better already. A little more perhaps. Bring it over here. Remember to keep your anvils nice and clean. Any crud on your anvil is going to end up in your work. Now, more than anything, it's important that you keep an eye on your work. Keep looking at it, seeing how it's moving. Be able to spot where you've got tights in your bend. And learn to be picky. You need to be able to have a look and see, actually, that ain't quite right. Now, my bend's not 100% in the middle on this one. I need to take a little bit of bend out of there. Now, this is much easier taking a little bit of bend out if you've got an oval-shaped bick, which I don't. The one on this anvil's actually round. I bent this up. The points are roughly the same sort of length. However, I've actually overbent it. Because on the tips, if I move it so I can get this tape on there, I'm just under 50 mil, 2 inches, and up here, I'm a little over 60. So, I could stick it back on the bick, but as I said, I've got a round bick on this anvil, and that makes opening things like horseshoes or, things like this quite tricky. So, there's another little tip that you can do, which is to actually hammer very gently on the inside of that bend. And what that'll actually do is spread that material on the inside, and that will open it up for me. So I'm going to take a heat, never do anything at this sort of temperature, and we'll get that on the anvil. Okay, so if I stick it on the anvil, I've marked it up now with a bit of chalk. You can see how it tapers in. Now if I hammer on the inside of here, I'm not really changing the section, not particularly, but that is opening that bend up. And you can see now, there we are, that's opened that up parallel. And there we go, guys, there's the finished staple. So let's cool that down so I don't burn my fingers. So there we are, guys, that's the finished flat staple. Centre punch is in the middle of the bend, that's important, and my 2 tapers are the same length. Always double check your tapers to make sure they're the same before moving on. Otherwise, you'll cause yourself a problem and you'll have to tweak it and then try and open it up and forge them out and stretch them out a little bit. But as you can see, it's not too difficult, that one. They've been making these for hundreds of years, knocking them into bits and pieces. So that's that finished. Hope you guys found that interesting and informative. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you next time here in the workshop. Cheers, guys.